So then guys, let's talk about the most popular selling MacBook out there, and that is the MacBook Air. And specifically, let's talk about all the latest and greatest details we know about the upgrades that are going to be happening to it, including an M4 being added to this model. Now, just a quick history lesson here. The MacBook Air last got updated March 2024, and in fact, it was at the very beginning of it. And the only big change that we mainly saw with this MacBook Air was just the M3 introduced to it. Really, nothing else has changed with this MacBook Air. Apple did say that obviously the brand new kind of midnight color that we got like here, obviously it wasn't so sort of sticky anymore, that you wouldn't get fingerprints on it. And also you had the ability that now you could actually plug in two monitors at the same time, as long as you actually close the lid of the MacBook Air. But you know, that's a bit strange, but we'll leave that for another day. But the main thing is, this was the main change that we got inside of it, was just the M3 put inside of this MacBook Air, and really everything else stayed the same. The color stayed the same, and all the ports stayed the same, and even the battery life and everything else like that, and even the price too, retained exactly the same for the M3 MacBook Air. But then with that, you're probably wanting to know, well, what changes are we going to see then with the M4 MacBook Air? Well, I think the most obvious one is going to be the M4 chip inside of it. Now, at the time of making this video, the M4 hasn't been released, but if Apple copies the exact same situation what they did last time, and that is they'll introduce the M4, M4 Pro and the M4 Max into the MacBook Pros and the iMac and the Mac Mini maybe first of all, then the MacBook Air will get an update later on down the line with the M4 inside of it. And most likely this will also be the two different variants of the M4 that are available. What I'm talking about the same two chips what you can get inside the iPad Pro right now with the M4. So this can be the choice of either the 9-core CPU or the 10-core CPU inside of this MacBook Air. And what I mean by that is obviously if it's the 9-core version, this means that you would probably get 3 performance cores and 6 efficiency cores. But if you've got the 10-core CPU, well, you get an extra performance core, so you get 4 performance core and 6 efficiency cores inside of it. But for GPU cores, it retains exactly the same. You still get 10 GPU cores inside of this. Now, something else what I'm going to go out on a limb here and say, and that is that we've been hearing that the new MacBook Pros are going to have 16 gigabytes of RAM as the base amount. Now, automatically, you might think, well, the MacBook Airs then, they'll get 16 gigabytes of RAM as the standard amount. But I think this is where Apple could actually change things. I've actually got a feeling that Apple could actually make the baseline M4 MacBook Air to actually have 12 gigabytes instead of 16 gigabytes, because obviously, you know, to actually differentiate the difference between, say, a Air and a Pro model, they might actually lower the amount of RAM to 12 gigabytes and also give you the binned version of that M4, the one with the 9-core instead of the 10-core CPU, to actually show that this is the difference between getting yourself, say, an M4 in a MacBook Pro, obviously all those extra ports and the screen and things like this, but this is where the main kind of differences would be that we could potentially get 12 gigabytes of RAM instead of 16 inside of this model. The only other things to mention is that obviously with this new MacBook Air, probably nothing else will change with it. We probably won't get any new updates to the design or anything like that. It will just probably retain exactly the same design, and there won't be any additional ports, no OLED displays or anything like that. But obviously with the M4 being far more efficient now, if Apple keep the same battery inside of this MacBook Air, well then the great news is that battery life could be extended out by an extra hour or two with the M4, what's going to be really, really awesome to see, because already with the iPad Pro, we know that Apple made the iPad Pro thinner, and then it actually had a smaller battery inside of it compared to the last generation, but it managed to retain the same amount of battery life compared to its M2 predecessor. But obviously Apple are not going to change the design of this MacBook Air and hopefully not actually make a smaller battery inside, because there'll be no point. That we would also probably get gains of battery life instead. Only by an hour or two, not too much, but this will be quite exciting to see if Apple actually do this on this model. The only other things obviously that we may get some new colors added to the MacBook Air range this time round potentially. Apple might introduce 1 or 2 more there, but really that is going to be it. The design, everything else like that is going to stay around for a couple more generations yet to come. And next, I will talk about the release date and price, but just before that, I want to tell you about the giveaway we're doing on this channel, probably before the MacBook Air gets released. And that is for this right here. This is an iPhone 16 Pro Max, and I'm going to be giving this away to one lucky subscriber from this channel. And all you have to do at this stage to enter in, because there will be more bits and pieces later on, is just put down in the comments below of what technology, whether this be Apple related or not, into the comments below what you're planning to get before the end of 2024, or maybe even going into 2025 now. Put it down into the comments below, whatever it is. Like I said, it doesn't have to be Apple related. It could be, you know, getting a PS5 Pro maybe. Put that down into the comments below. And then, like I said, near the end of December time, I'm going to be actually announcing who the winner is of this iPhone 16 Pro Max, who I'm going to be giving it away to. And you won't want to miss out on that video because there will be a few other details too, a little form to fill in as well, so you don't want to miss out on those details. So make sure you've done so already, subscribe to this channel and hit that notification bell, because like I said also, I'm also going to be giving this away to a subscriber, so you need to be a subscriber for that. The only other thing I want to say quickly is obviously this is the iPhone 16 Pro Max Desert Titanium, or Titanium Desert, whatever you want to call it, 256GB model. This is an international giveaway, so I'm going to be giving it to somebody anywhere in the world. And the only other thing I want to quickly say is, sadly, there are still lots of scammers and spammers out there. People still impersonating me still, telling you to WhatsApp, Telegram, direct message and things like this on Instagram. Please do ignore these people, or better still, as you can see right here, please do report them. So with that, moving along then to the release dates then. When are we most likely going to get our hands on the M4 MacBook Air? Well, if we get a repeat of the last, say, 12 months or so, Apple are going to be doing an event, as we know, in the next couple of weeks, showcasing us the new M4s inside Macs, including the MacBook Pros, and then a few months later, that's when we'll be able to get our hands on an M4 inside of a MacBook Air. So we're talking any time kind of round about, say, from February, end of February, to probably about early April sort of time is when we'll be able to get our hands on this new MacBook Air with an M4 inside of it. At the end of the day, we got it in March this year in 2024. So this sounds like a good sort of time again in 2025. Like I said, end February, March, or kind of into the beginning of April, when we'll be able to get our hands on this new model. And most likely Apple will do the same thing again. They'll retain the M3 this time. They'll get rid of the M2 MacBook Air and they'll keep the M3 at a lower price. It will cost you around about $100 less than the M4 model. And talk about the price, well, most likely Apple are going to retain the pricing structure all over again, at least in US dollars. So the base model, like I said, that binned version of the 9-core CPU, 10-core GPU for the M4, and potentially even 12GB of RAM, that one there will probably still cost you $1,099 US for that model at the same price that it has for the last 2 generations. Obviously, the larger MacBook Air, the 15-inch model, that will cost more, $1,299 US, and probably won't have the binned version of the M4 inside. It'll have the standard one with the 10-core CPU, 10-core GPU, maybe still 12GB of RAM, but that will cost $1,299 US, the exact same price again for that model. But really guys, that is the latest and greatest that we know about the MacBook Air with an M4 inside of it. Are you going to be waiting around to get your hands on one? Well, let me know in the comments below. And with that as well guys, it's time to wrap up this video. So if you have enjoyed watching it, please do press the like button. Also, you want to hear the latest Apple news, reviews and comparison too, make sure you subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell. Until next time guys, I'll see you really soon. Take care. Bye bye.